Thanks everybody for joining this session with us today for this a data-driven approach on how to migrate into the cloud systematically with the help of data discovery, how it helps us. So I, along with JC, my friend and partner from OneTouch, will take over next one hour to talk about all these aspects, challenges, and how a product like OneTouch can help on this part. Myself, Minmay Jana, I'm the engagement partner for data security and protection practice of Wipro for entire America. And JC?
Yeah, thank you, Mrinmay, and thank you, folks, for joining. Very excited for the session today. My name is Jesse Sedler. I'm the VP of Product here at OneTouch.io, formerly at IBM, DARPA, a handful of other places, been in the data security space for about 10 years now. So looking forward to the conversation and looking forward to people's questions and how we can help folks on their cloud journey. So keep them coming. All right, Mrinmay, ready to jump in?
Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, so thanks, JC, for the introduction. And this is the agenda we would try to cover. A couple of housekeeping points. This discussion will be there will be a demo of the product, how the product can help us on this. And if you have any questions, please put that in the chat. We'll try to address towards the end. That is how the webinar is structured. So the agenda items are like this, if you can see the screen, that what are the lessons learned, what are the challenges we face every day when an enterprise, large, small, big, they move to cloud. We'll talk about a few of them. Cost and risk, how they are related with each other, how they increases the budget or the cost for our organization, and how we can do it, what we can do to minimize those cost complexities. Some of the example we'll talk, some of the case study, at least 2 case study we'll talk, real life example, how we were able to solve the problem for the customer, and then how this product can actually help you achieve this objective, going forward. And then lastly, the question and answer. This is the agenda for this webinar today. Next slide. Okay. So this is the first, right? That everything starts with architecture, right? These are all, if you can see that these are all advantage of cloud journey, right? Cost effective. But if we don't do it right, then the problem starts. Doing it right is important to get all these advantages. For example, if I do not plan the migration properly, then I cannot take the advantage of cost, right? That the cloud's biggest advantage is that no upfront investment in the infrastructure. But if I do not plan properly, if I do not architect the solution before I start doing it, then ultimately we have seen that people spend much more money than the infrastructure. So putting everything in like a solution in a page is very important to take all these advantage. Security is a probably people forget to think about security when they very quickly try to go to the cloud. Processing power, huge storage, click of a button, provisioning experience, all are great. But if you put your entire cloud journey in a solution, in an architecture format, probably you will take all these advantage properly. And then how this architecture gets created, where is the starting point, right? That starts with your doing things right. Doing things right at the beginning means you should know what you would like to take to the cloud, what data, what application, that you would like to migrate to the cloud. It may not be the entire data set of a box or of a unique system, or a data center need to be migrated to the cloud. Probably you just need 15% important data that and the related application that you need to take to the cloud. That is where the architecture come into place, which consider each and every aspect of a cloud journey, right? From security, cost effectiveness, scalability, adaptability, high availability, everything comes into the picture. So architecture is a best place to start with. Next slide. And then risk, right? Risk of cloud migration. So we see that from our experience that 60% exceed budgets, and then 40% are over provisioned. It should be the other way. We see that 40% are over provisioned. Due to that, it exceeds cost. That is what we see. So, if we don't do it right, that migration, right, the journey to the cloud, what are the area, how it impacts your overall budget, cloud experience, the frustration within the organization. First is your data storage cost, right? Probably everything you do not need to be in cloud. If there is no provision that every part of the data of organization has to go in cloud. For example, we have worked with one of the largest bank, multinational bank in headquartered in US, is a multinational company. And they just do not know their all data. Where is they have all the data, all their asset data. Like, for example, all the name of the buildings, all the hardware, software, desktop, laptop, all their assets globally. They have an inventory. But when they were deciding they will go to the cloud to take the advantage of cloud, raw processing power, huge storage, click of a button, provisioning, everything great, right? And they decided that we will not take this application, the application which holds asset inventory, to the cloud. The reason is that they anyway, for strategic reason, they are keeping their data center, and this data is there fine, no high availability required, nothing is required. So if they decided that this data, the asset data, they will take the cloud, it's a cost, extra cost, right? So this decision comes after you do the proper data discovery and classification. Knowing the data is important. Data loss, if you do not configure the backup properly or make a mistake of configurations, data can be lost in a fraction of second, right? Data exposure, that wrong config, cloud has made life easier, and that's also a problem sometimes. Like, click of a button, you can give access to a group of users. And the bigger problem, practical problem, is that when we go to the cloud as an organization, we create a new organization structure, right? You go to a public cloud, they will allow you to your organization structure. The traditional organization structure was there, or they built over the years, right? Layers of protection, layers of verifiability, layers of access control. But when you go to cloud with a new organization structure, very quickly, probably you lose that more check and balances, and you are trying to do things quickly. So click of a button, you can give more access to to a certain group of user, which creates more risk, and your data can be exposed due to that. People do not need to know your data; they can have access because of easiness. Okay, data breach. Again, same thing. Misconfiguration can lead to a data breach. Traditional boundaries are not there, and then compliance, right? Probably everything, again, I'm saying the same thing, that probably everything should not go to cloud. Think about a situation that our organization is doing a compliance. Part of the compliance is your data residency, or data localization, right? That a country's data should not be leaving the data center of that country or that continent, especially EU, right? European Union. So if you do not know which data is that you cannot allow cloud provider to put that data outside of the continent, right? You cannot effectively talk to your cloud provider. Probably, if you know that exactly that those applications and those data sets should not be going out of the country, probably you will keep in your data center. You do not need to migrate to that to the cloud environment. So knowing this is important, and that knowing part, that the knowing that data is comes with your data discovery and classifications, right? And lastly, and but most importantly, the data security, right? That once you know the data, you know, right, how important it is. That 10%, 5% data you really need to protect in your organization. Everything there is no need to protect, right? Only that 5%. So you can decide that I will use a better algorithm, better key management system, better encryption to protect this data. So these are all related with starting right. Start right is the key word, and that comes with your data discovery and classification. Okay, next slide. And then this is Gartner statement that raw data or garbage data is a problem, right? And this increases when organizations has more unstructured data. 80% data is unstructured roughly in an organization, and 20% is structured data. Structured data is a little better in terms that it has a method of protection, inventorized, but unstructured data is a new beast, right? And the main important data from your security perspective, from your intelligence perspective, from your analytics perspective, probably 15%. That data you really need to take probably to the cloud to use the raw power, But if you do not know that 15% data that you need to take, probably then what will happen? You are taking much more data that increases your cost, that increases your processing power, and at the end of the month, a bigger bill, right? 1 minute, sorry. Yeah. Probably after a point, you are paying more money than you anticipated, right? So identifying that raw data, the garbage data is important to have an effective security strategy, effective cloud migration strategy, okay? That is very important, right? And then if you have more dark data, that increases your risk. If you are blind on something, then that is the riskiest thing happening, in your environment. So this is the philosophy for us, that too much data is bad, right data, knowing the right data for your organization, and then managing that data securely for the cloud migration is the most important thing. And that gives you advantage of running the cloud migration properly. And that happens if you run your data discovery and classification as a practice, as an ongoing practice. And it should be the heart of your data migration strategy, cloud migration strategy. Okay. And then, And then the next slide, if you can go to the next slide, please.
Yeah, I can take this one. I'll cut in here, Renmei.
Sure.
That was great. And I think it's a great way of thinking about cloud migration. And in terms of the analogy that keeps coming to my head when you were going through all that rich information is basically, if I decided tomorrow I wanted to start lifting weights, right? There's the end result of lifting a weight, but what's more important is the form around how you do it, because you can do it in the wrong way and hurt yourself. And I think in many ways, the whole idea of cloud migration is like lifting a weight, where you understand intuitively what has to get done. But if you don't do it in the right way, you find yourself in trouble. And I think that analogy in some ways summarizes what Renmei was talking about. And it really ties nicely into where OneTouch.io plays into this overall ecosystem as well, because the idea of form and the idea of kind of doing things in the right way and doing them upfront before you get in too deep, right, ties back to the idea of what data do you have? How's it classified? Where is it? How old is it? What are the attributes around it? Even the previous slide Ray presented around what is redundant, obsolete, and trivial that you don't want to move, right? And if you can delete things, remove things before you move them, you mitigate both from a cost perspective as well as a risk perspective, which is substantial. And you couple all of that with the world that we're living in today, where there are too many just overall security alerts going on, and security systems are choking on the noise and volume from the growth of their data. And taking this information from the IBM cluster breach study, it really shows you that with the number of alerts happening, the average time to respond to an incident is much too long in cyberspace, right? The 4.5 days is eternity to a bad actor who wants to get in. And you couple that with not having enough people around to actually stop these problems. And we're in a bit of a tough situation, especially as it pertains to having data on-prem, data on cloud, right? As you're moving things to cloud, there's new configurations, there's new ways of protecting that have to be understood. And it all really ties back to the notion of, well, what is sensitive to you? If you know what is sensitive to you, which is where One Touch comes in as the center of really the pinwheel of all your existing security solutions, and becomes the platform for visibility. If you can decide what's sensitive, then you can feed that sensitivity and that intelligence into all of these downstream tools, be them on cloud, be them on-prem, be them in hybrid environments, so that once it's moved, or even before it's moved, the right controls are in place, the right monetization strategies in place in terms of deprecating old legacy data. You've worked on the configurations on the clouds, which is very hard and challenging, but you've invested the time and the resources in order to do it the right way, so that you've understood your form before you make your move. Once you make your move, you're comfortable, you're not hurting yourself because you've taken the upfront steps to get it right. I think all of that is really key and central to the whole story that we're telling here today, and how Wipro and One Touch can work together to really help organizations as they move through on-prem, legacy, even mainframe up into the cloud, to modernize. So with that, I'll go to the next slide. So this gets into what can we do? What can be done? And Mrinmay, I will point it back to you for some of the guidance.
Yeah. So, yeah, thanks, Jesse. Yeah. So what are the things we can do, right? What from our experience, what we think we should do to do it right, to do it, the cloud migration goes fine, lower cost, biggest benefit to the enterprise. First is the assessment. We need to sit with the stakeholders in our organization. We need to talk to the business managers, the business owners, data owners, application owners, to understand their current landscape and why and how they would like to migrate to the cloud. Then that is a first and the starting point, right? Their objective, what they are trying to do. Now, our job as a consultant, as a product vendor, as a partner, trusted partner, is to help them to in their journey. And the first step is as I and Jesse are telling, the data discovery. Discover your data, understand your data, that what data I have where, think about our data as when data comes to our organization and then it leaves the organization. Either it goes to the partner organization, third-party vendor, or we delete it, or we archive it. There is a data life cycle, right? Same way, there is a data security life cycle. How, every point of time, we may not need to secure data the same way, all the time. Probably when it is in non-production system, we need to secure data differently than the production system. Probably we need to use tokenization somewhere. Probably we have to do the static masking somewhere. So to know all these, you need to understand how data flows between the applications with the organization. Think about a situation. If you just take the application logic to migrate your data into cloud, application voice, right? You are migrating 5 applications. Probably there are data which are not independent to applications. Probably shared servers, shared databases used by 5 applications or 10 applications. If you migrate one application but do not migrate the entire data set which are dependent on each other, probably your application, once is in cloud, will not be able to work with each other. So learning that data discovery, the base of the data used by all the related applications, and then criticality of the data from a compliance standpoint, from a security standpoint, right, is the key for their successful migrations, right? Once you do that, once you create the inventory and classify that data, now you know that, hey, I have Initially, in the assessment phase, they said, I need to migrate 50 applications into the cloud from 6 departments. After this data discovery, understanding the application in interdependency, all 50 applications, it is only 30, for example, which need to go to cloud to use the power, use the analytics power, use the discovery engine, and quick provisioning. 20 you need to have in your own data center, maybe due to data localization law, maybe due to a compliance, maybe they are super critical tier A application which holds all kind of PII data. That planning you need to do with the stakeholders, the business stakeholder, application owners, data owners, privacy office, everybody, ISO office, everybody. Once you do that, once a kind of a buy-in happens, the planning happens with the stakeholders, now you think about security of the migration. Once now you know that the base data set, now the application codes and the data all need to be migrated of the 30 applications, not the 50 applications. That is the agreement. Now, how you do that securely? The point A, which is your existing data center, to point B, which is your maybe GCP or AWS, is that point A to point B migration is secured, fully encrypted, keys are not compromised. If not, what is your remediation strategy? That you need to do. Once you do that, then you are really helping the organization, these 4 steps, to really go to the cloud properly, effectively, and cost effectively. And yeah, these are the 4 steps I would say broadly are the required for successful cloud migration. And especially for the data discovery part, our strategic partners product, OneTouch, the best product I have used, it really helps. Really helps in all these finding the right data based on a compliance regulation like GDPR. That is the area they really do very, very well. Next slide, Jesse.
Yep. Awesome. So what does OneTouch.io do to really help in the cloud migration, right? We've talked about it to this point in terms of at a high level, what are activities that folks should be considering when they're making their migration and doing their digital transformation? But more specifically, where does OneTouch come in as a platform to really facilitate and enable the secure movement of data that also ties back to the 3 things that Marin outlined of location, access, and retention management. And if you think about these 3, right, it's before I move, once I've moved it, how do I give access? And once it's moved, how do I get rid of it on the back end? Right? This is exactly where OneTouch.io steps in and help. Right? And with that, and I'll show this in the demo in a little bit, but really step 1 is discovery of the sensitive data. That is both in terms of the data elements themselves within a repository, as well as what data sources do I have in my environment on-prem that I might want to move to the cloud. Maybe there's a bunch of shadow IT you don't even know about that you want to discover. We have methods of network discovery, which we've used at various customers to, within seconds, populate 85,000 data sources, most of which they didn't know about. Step 2 becomes, okay, I know what data sources I have. Now I need to open them up, and I need to go find the sensitive stuff that's in there. The sensitive data, though, can be both PII, which is what folks typically think of when you talk about sensitive data, but it also can be non-PII sensitive data, like trade secrets, like a 10K, like cryptographic secrets. You think about your IP that could be sitting in a text document somewhere. Well, you want to also basically discover and classify what that is, put a fingerprint on it, and keep track of it. Because maybe the airplane plans from 20 years ago are no longer relevant, but you still want to keep some control on it. You want to keep it on-prem, so you don't want to move it. Once, and even before you do your movement, we also want to show you, well, what do you have on premise that might be very old? Maybe it's past its retention period. So back to this point, right? You can understand the retention and the management. What that comes down to is if it's past the retention period and it's sensitive, get rid of it, right? Delete it, back it up, put it into cold storage, encrypt it, throw the key away, whatever it is that you want to do. Don't move it to the cloud because you'll be paying for it in perpetuity, which can become very, very expensive. So, I'll show more of this in the demo, but OneTouch is a great platform to help facilitate this migration of both on-prem, cloud, and even mainframe data to understand what is the data, where is it, how is it classified, and then what are the additional posture-based attributes around it to understand if data, is or is not relevant based on the use cases the organization wants to go, attack. And if it's just migrate my Oracle on-prem to my Oracle on cloud, great, we can help with that. If it's I have 50 petabytes of data and I don't really want to move it all to cloud because it's very, very expensive, that's exactly where we come in Excel to do that scanning on-prem, tell you what's sensitive and should be kept, what's sensitive and should be deprecated based on its age, deprecate, and move on. And so with that, I want to talk a little bit about just the OneTouch.io platform, what that means, what are some of the differentiators, and why some very, very large organizations have trusted in us to help them with their overall data journey. So off the bat is just the automated contextual and AI and analytics platform, right? So we are using various forms of advanced machine learning and AI and analytics to help really understand and pinpoint sensitive data. Neural networks, supervised techniques, NLP, semantic analysis are all utilized for scale, performance, and accuracy. We fully recognize that tools doing discovery and classification have been around for many years. Pretty much all of them have failed at some level because they couldn't scale. They weren't performant enough to get through the reams and reams and reams of sensitive data. And the accuracy for a lot of them was 50%, 60%, 70%. It wasn't that good to where you could be confident in making a decision off of the sensitivity of that information. So the OneTouch team and the co-founders took a unique approach back when they started about 7 years ago to build AI into the core foundation of the platform to enable scale, accuracy, and performance. And what that got us when we brought in a third party to do performance testing and accuracy testing was 98.6% accurate at the data element level as well as the repository level, right? That's astronomical. That is, orders of magnitude better than what we're seeing with other tools in market who don't have the same approach that OneTouch has taken for the platform. And what that means is when you make a downstream decision of what do I delete, what do I block, what do I encrypt, what do I pass into a data catalog to unlock value, right? Those decisions can be made confidently because you know that you have a really good handle on what sensitive data you have and where is it. The next piece that this comes into is automation. Nobody has enough people on their teams to handle the massive amounts of data and then to enable the proper security, governance, protection, compliance, et cetera, around that. So we take a network-based approach, which is optional, but it is the right starting point for our solution, in that we're always sniffing the network to understand data, sensitive data, where it is, how it's moving, where it could be going, and what are new areas where it's landing. Once it lands, we can set up permissible windows to do scanning, connect in as a client, so there are no agents with the product, which allows for easy maintenance and an easy time to value. And then we can do that scanning 24/7, only on Tuesdays, only at night. Again, the customer gets to pick how they want to scan, and we can always be on, right? We can always be monitoring for presence and location of sensitive data, and then we can orchestrate and kick off actions based on the sensitivity of what we found with a policy engine that allows for very rich, policy writing that doesn't require any code change, no need to understand, how to write policy-based code, all from a no-code method. In terms of that is that we really focus on any data. Data to us doesn't matter where it is, what flavor it is. Structured, unstructured, semi-structured, cloud, on-prem, even mainframe data, we can scan, classify, understand, and then prepare for the next steps that are downstream, because we are the front end to the platform when it comes to overall organizational data management. Great. All right, Mrinmay, back to you for a case study.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. Yeah, so exactly what I was just talking last, a few slides, and then Jesse emphasized, right, that how data discovery and classification is important, right? Especially data discovery, let's put that way. This is the case study where we have really applied each and every part of that, right? This is a big global investor, very long timer in the market, across the continents. They have offices, a billion-dollar company, So they took our help on this space. Let me tell you in a story format, okay? So they wanted to go to one of the public cloud, GCP, especially. They thought that they will go to GCP, their strategic partner, and they come to us and they say that, hey, before we start, we have a strategy in place, architecture in place, right? The very first slide which I was talking, right? I have architecture in place, I have a strategy in place, but hey, Wipro, you are leader in this space. Why don't you come and validate this? Why don't you come and work with us to ensure that our direction is right? We are thinking in a right direction for these cloud migrations, right? We said, fine, we'll do that. So what we did is we again understood their objective, what they would like to achieve, right? They would like to take some of the um, OLTP kind of applications, business-centric application, which needs raw power to the cloud. They're very conservative company in terms of security and compliance. They would not take any PI data or that trade secret, what just JC said, those kind of applications into cloud. They will still retain in their own data center. But they do not know from where to start. So what we did is we deployed a discovery solution which went into their entire. We worked with their data owner and application owners to validate the data, that hey, this is data is coming from such and such data source, and it is used by such and such applications. And we created the map that, hey, how data are being used by the applications, the data life cycle, right? How data is traveling within the organization from the starting point to end point. It was not possible. Saying this is very easy, the way I'm saying, but it's not possible without a great data discovery tool, because scanning the enterprise boundaries, some of the servers, they are not in the network map, still going there and finding the data, and creating that entire structure is not easy without a modern AI driven, ML driven data discovery tool. So we did that. We validated the result with them. And the most important part, that response time or the power used by all three infrastructure, right? Primary data center, DR data center, and as well as cyber security, recovery center, right? So that all three came into the picture before we created that right set of applications that will go to into the GCP cloud, right? So and then we kind of agreed. There were a lot of conversation. It was a kind of a consulting exercise where we worked with the business owners to take their buy-in, that whatever we are doing, do you agree with these findings? And then that took little more time. Then ultimately the strategy decided was the almost everybody buy-in. It was not departmental wise, compartmental wise. It was for the entire organization, for their entire cloud migration strategy, and that was that helped them to complete the first part of the migration within 2.5 quarters. The first part of the migration, and then subsequent migration they will do. They have done their migration strategy based on tier of the applications. So this way, our consulting ability with the great data discovery tool helped them to decide on the right application, right data to take into the cloud environment, not the everything quickly, just start somehow, and then after 3 months, you are acting as a directionless enterprise for cloud adaptability. It's not that. They have done it right because they started it right. Next.
Yeah, and just to add to that too, kind of back to, I guess, the analogy I made earlier of weightlifting, right, is that they had the proper form, right, and they studied the proper form before they started taking on the action, so that it was done, with the experience of Wipro and their guidance. It was done in the right way, so that was a successful migration, which can be a huge nightmare if you don't do it right. You can, lose money, you can, increase your risk. Lots of potential ways that you can go wrong here. So by focusing on the form with the Wipro team, this organization was able to have a very successful migration and likely is seeing massive cost savings as well as operational efficiencies due to the benefits of the cloud. So it's a great story. One other case study I want to talk about is one that we have seen with OneTouch.io, working with a global services organization, who has operations across dozens and dozens of countries, right? In their case, they had on-prem structured and unstructured data sitting in various types of repositories. They didn't have great visibility into what they had, especially in terms of the business owner and the age of the data. And one of the challenges that they were up against was they wanted to do a cloud migration, but they wanted to understand what data they had before they made the migration. Otherwise, they'd be sitting on potentially a lot of very risky, very old information that's never going to be used. So why move it, right? If I'm moving from my house to a new house, I should get rid of the stuff that I've never actually touched, or like the clothing I never wear again. Otherwise, it's just taking up space and I'm paying for it in the movement. So in this instance, the security architect is who we work directly with. And what they reported back to us is that they were able to save about a 50% reduction in unstructured data, right? Which is massive if you think about how much data that could be at a global IT services company. And that ended up being about a $200,000 annual storage cost savings, right? So it's a massive number in terms of savings. And what was even better is that their license cost was about a fourth of that. So they had a 4x return on the investment every year, right, going forward, and probably even greater than that, just because every year they're still discovering more and more on-prem data that needs to be deprecated before it's moved. So they're really just putting money back in their pocket, which is also then paying for the license cost and then some, and helping with the overall operational efficiency of their business. So it's a great success story in terms of really understanding what you have and focusing on your form before you make your movement. When you do the movement, you put the proper controls around the sensitive data, as Mrinmay talked about earlier with the data access aspects of it, and then the data retention management. Get rid of the stuff before you make the move. Otherwise, you pay for it. Who wants to pay for things they're not going to use? I don't want to take clothing with me when I move that I'm never going to put on again. So it's just proper housekeeping. It's a really, really nice story, and it's been very successful in terms of an engagement that we would love to replicate with Wipro and any organizations who were interested in a cloud movement. So to kind of round it out too, is that from an overall data maturity journey standpoint, we're starting to see a number of use cases pop up that really tie back to this overall world of how do we do a secure cloud migration in such a way that we're removing data that doesn't need to be there, ensuring access, but also ensuring data retention and management are handled properly. And the use cases that we're seeing as we take on these engagements is that a lot of times customers start in the notion of just total visibility. What data do I have and where is it? From there, it's trying to understand from a compliance standpoint, what do I have? What rules do I have to abide by? And how do I also start responding, right? So it's reactive to the regulatory nature of all the regulations that folks are up against. From there, it becomes proactive. How do I also understand what sensitive data I have to automate governance and also automate the access to data in a timely manner so teams can start basically driving down their time to market and their time to insight so they're running better data projects. And then finally getting to a world of dynamic business orchestration where the data is what is driving, third-party orchestration and actions. Where today we think about maybe threat intelligence as a driver of what could be happening to my organization, we're taking the same approach, but from the data itself. A bunch of credit card numbers were found outside of an approved area. Kick off action that opens a ticket in ServiceNow, alerts my SIM, and also quarantines that information so it can be properly rectified and handled in the right way. This leads us into a world of federated data management, where it's really just total control of your information across siloed environments, structured, unstructured, semi-structured, cloud, on-prem, mainframe, but with the same set of labels, the same set of understanding, the same set of tags, and the same policy and rules around that information to orchestrate, understand, automate, and both drive value as well as security, both in terms of the cloud migration, but also just day-to-day data operations, which are increasingly important in a very AI-centric world that we live in today. So we thought it'd be helpful to talk about the overall data maturity journey and how the partnership between Wipro and OneTouch can really help kick off a lot of these activities and also ensure the proper usage of data while also ensuring the right security around it. With that, let me just jump into a quick demo. Give me 1 second to find the demo. All right, Mrinmay, can you see the demo?
Yeah, I can
All
see.
right, great. Awesome. All right, so I'll do a pretty quick demo because we're running short on time. Just two quick caveats. One, anytime you do a live demo, there's the chance that something explodes. So demo gods, I hope they shine light. Like, I hope that we're abiding by them. And number two is this is a demo environment. So some of the things that happen in it are a bit funky. But just go along with the story. And in terms of anyone who wants to see a proper system running on-prem, we can do that or in the cloud as well. So the starting point for our story, I'm going to show a couple of things relatively quickly, is the idea around, here we go, come on, demo. Oh no. Sorry, VPN was just connected and got kicked off. It's never good. Sorry, here we go. Almost there. And we're hanging on that last 2%. Very sorry about that. Give it another second to see if it connects. Clearly, we're having some VPN issues. Well, the best laid plans, I tested it right before we started the webinar. It was all up and running. Let's see if it works this time. There we go, did it. All right, sorry about technical difficulties. Again, just sometimes happens with live demos. That is all good. We'll run through it pretty fast so that there's time for questions at the end. So the starting point to our overall journey is to understand what sensitive data do you have in the environment, right? And that really starts at the repository discovery, not necessarily sensitive data discovery. So what you see here is after we tap into a network, we populate a network map of all the nodes that ping the network. We've done this, a number of customers where you plug it in and boom, it populates all sorts of data sources that are known or unknown. Which also we can do classification of data in motion to help understand how sensitive data for my employees in Europe might be moving across my various subnets. What we do from there, though, is that really feeds us into our catalog, right? This is really the CMDB of all the sensitive data that you might have in the organization. Come on. Sorry for all the tabs coming up. There we go. Great. Okay, almost there. All right, so here you can see, right, a list of various data sources that we have. What you can see within this is that we have a lot of cloud sources, of course, because we have to scan on cloud. We have on-prem file shares, lots of on-prem databases as well. A lot of Google, a lot of Microsoft, a lot of IBM, even into the mainframe, et cetera. Right, so what you can start doing from here is start seeing, well, now that I've discovered the data sources, I want to start scanning the data sources. So you say I want to start scanning my on-prem file shares, right? It's a great starting point when it comes to your unstructured data. What do I have? Where is it? Right? What this tells you is when these scans are happening, what's the file path to that folder structure or that repository? When was it last scanned? How much PII was potentially found? How much seems like PII but needs validation? And then finally, what are some of the customized tags that can be added to that data source? You might say, this is my marketing data. So it's production data. It's also test data is in here. The tags are all customizable. But where it gets really interesting, right, is now that we've discovered, all right, we have data sources on-prem with unstructured data. I wonder what's in them. So here you go to the attack surface reduction dashboard in the product. All right, and what this shows you is sensitive files by age. When were they created, which is important. But what's oftentimes more impactful is when was it last modified? Because this tells you that it hasn't been used in a very long time, and it is also sensitive or personal. This is all customizable, so you can put in whatever attributes are most important to you in your organization. What you do then is you double click into it. And this takes you to the actual files. in a second. Here we go. So now you can see the list of files that contain sensitive personal data and that are more than 10 years old. These are the ones you want to deprecate, right? And what you can see here is the exact file path to the NFS drive, where it's saved in central storage, what type of file it is. It's a PEM file, so that's already a problem. That's why it's got a high criticality score. This is a docx, also with a high criticality score. What we can show you is in this document, here are the data elements that are found. Here are the regulations that it ties back to. Here's some of the special categories that were customized for this. Who is the owner? When is the last analysis? When was it first seen? When was it last seen? And then in the case today that we're showing it was deleted, is not necessarily that the file was fully deleted. It's just that this file was protected in some way. So when we did a first scan, we found it. We did a second scan, the organization had already taken some action to protect this information. So now it no longer exists. But assuming that this isn't deleted, what you can do is you can export the results. XLS, CSV, everything on here has an API sitting behind it. Or you can go to our ecosystem and start orchestrating third-party actions into various other products. Maybe you want to open a ServiceNow ticket based on what was found. Maybe you want to pass into Splunk the location of this various sensitive data because that's the control hub that you use, or Calibra, or Relation, right? So what you see here are lots of various ways of satisfying the use case end-to-end of discover, classify, understand, and take the action to help me get rid of my most sensitive information. Right? And with lots of our customers, we're seeing that as the core to the cloud migration story of it's not just the discovery and classification, but it's also the context around it and the usage of contextual AI to understand that that data has not been touched in 10 years and it's John Smith's information and he's in marketing. So that's got a lot of sensitive data in it, a lot of PII or other things that are sensitive. So it's probably time to get rid of it once it's hit that retention period. So with that, I will go back to the slides. And I think that we are about at the point to wrap up. So Mrinmay, I'll let you talk about the partnership. Back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. So regarding the partnership, right, we started the journey last year sometime, we got to know about the product from our investment arms, that, there is a product onetouch.io, why don't you have a look into that? So we saw that product, we learned about the product, our demo, then we did a installation, our COE installation in our lab. And we found that the product is great. The way it runs the first scan and then the subsequent differential scan is much more faster than some of the other product in the market. That its ability to produce the result, the contextual result around the privacy laws, around the security, and around the aging of the data is really very good. And then we decided to go with the product OneTouch.io, and then we have already trained our resources, our delivery leaders, our support engineers with this product. They have gone through the comprehensive training last couple of months, couple of quarters, and this is our product to go whenever we talk to our partners, our customers, and they have requirement around data security posture management, discovery, classification, compliance management, cloud migration, all the use cases what Jesse was showing in the previous slide. We offer this product, because we believe in this product, and it's a really great product. So with this partnership is going strong for last 1.5 years or so, and we are looking forward to work together in future. Jesse, you want to add something?
Yeah, no, I just say it's been great working together. We're seeing lots of good success so far in the field, and we're excited to continue on that path, helping organizations migrate securely, confidently, and responsibly to the cloud. So we hope folks will reach out with any questions, comments, and we are here to help, which does lead us to the end of the presentation. So if there are any questions, feel free to put them into the chat or the Q&A, and Mrinmay and I will address them as they come in. And also big thank you to everybody for joining and for the team for putting this together. It's been a real honor to work with Wipro on this.
Same here.
And I don't see any questions yet, but it could be, we've got about 8 minutes left, so we might have run over in terms of time. We'll give it another maybe 10 seconds if folks have questions. And if not, I think we can wrap up. All right. With that, we will wrap up. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time and your patience and your interest in what we're doing. Take care.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you.